And welcome to Punchline, and thank you for joining us in the ring tonight. The clearly indomitable, is it, Suba North MP Millie Odhiambo. Thank you very much for coming to the program.
And thank you for having me.
No, absolutely, it's a pleasure. And let's start on a positive note.
Yes.
And yesterday we saw the world marathon record holder Eliud Kipchoge break all records, if you like, through that very proud 159, challenge in Austria. I mean, it certainly has done a lot, with that catchphrase, for everyone in the world. There's no barrier, there's no limit. But what do you think it means specifically for Kenya and for Kenyan children?
Well, he made Kenyans proud, let's say, first of all. And we've already been put in the map, world map with athletics in the past. But he now took us to a higher level, but also just encouraged a lot of young people. I saw a lot of young people were so excited that anything is possible if you put your mind to it.
Right.
And you kind of set your own limits and you can break them.
Exactly.
So I think that's really one of the most beautiful moments for Kenya, and he did us proud.
Do you think he should be celebrated next week?
He should be celebrated. Yeah. Even though Kenyans, as usual, I could see people were already making fun that they thought if we celebrated him as a Kenyan, then that's taken away from him, because people think they are Kenyans that have been celebrated that ought not to have been celebrated. But I think he should be celebrated. We shouldn't only have celebrated him then. If you ask me, we should even have had a public holiday immediately.
Oh, wow.
To celebrate him.
Unfortunately, the Cabinet Secretary for the Interior dispelled such quote-unquote fears, I suppose, on the part of government. But you are right that people do feel that there's been a history of awarding the wrong people. Do you agree with that? Is this the opportunity for the president to remedy it?
Well, I don't know whether I would say that awarding him would be remedying. I don't know what criteria, say, for instance, that has been used to award others in the past, so I wouldn't say so. But I would want to speak to him as a person, and I think he should be celebrated, not just by, whatever awards that we have. If I was in the corporate sector, I would be getting over ourselves just giving him our own awards.
But Eliud Kipchoge Day is something you would support?
Yes, I would.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
His win has also reminded us about the sorry state of, if you like, sports and certain disciplines in the country, the way the government has dealt with sportsmen and women traditionally, never mind the unfulfilled promises on stadia. What do you think it is about the administration that doesn't seem to really, have a 24/7 approach in giving commitment to developing and honoring sports persons?
Well, I think we started right on sports for many years, but there's something we are not getting right now on sports, because sometimes I look at even the more just ended games, and I was like, Kenya could have done better, even though we were number 3, I think.
Right, number 3.
Yeah, but we could have done better, because we've always been the giants, and because of allegations of corruption in sports, where we pick the people who are not the best. So it has resulted in some of the Kenyans going to other countries, signing up in other countries. So you see somebody winning in Uganda called Arab something, or you see somebody in Qatar or wherever.
Correct.
Yeah, and if we gave them as much recognition that they ought to and the support that they need to, then they would be competing.
Quick one, and finally, the Cabinet Secretary, Amina Mohammed, is she in the right position?
I think so. She's doing well.
Okay.
She's doing well, and you can see the improvement already. Somebody was actually saying that they thought she was wrong for sports, but she's proving that she's doing right for it.
Okay. Let's move on to Nairobi now. And in the past, you've had a lot to say about how the county is being run by the current governor, Mike Sonko. What do you think of his leadership?
I've said it before, and I think Mike Sonko has a lot of energy. He's young, and so people expected a lot of him. But it's disappointing a lot of people in the country. He's been beleaguered of late, and I think you recently saw some videos that were I don't know the correct word really or terminology to use, but to be polite, let me say that we're sort of curious, let me put that word. But I think what Mike is doing is trying to distract attention.
To distract us.
From the problems that he's facing in Nairobi. All
right, and let's just listen in to some of the curious videos you're talking about.
Like a rocket launcher. He survived, yeah, you like a dog.
Nairobi wewe, wakati mambo mingi bwana. Hii ufala gani mnafanya? Relax guys. Mimi narudi. Yeah. Tell you, that's the capital city, my friend. What's wrong with you guys? Huh? That's the capital city of Kenya. Stop your jokes.
Well, clearly he seems to be having the time of his life out there. And, you know, he has defended this, saying he has every right to have fun, even as he provides leadership for the capital. What do you think of that?
Well, he has every right to have fun. Nobody stops him from having fun. The one that you didn't show, which I didn't see as having fun, is the one that he was showing us about how trains, that I didn't understand. And even again,
he was on a benchmarking tour,
yeah, well, I don't know how you are benchmarking about trains. I don't know if he's never traveled, but we see this all the time when you travel, even when in the past parliament. So, and you can also go to YouTube. There's really nothing there to benchmark. I think what Sonko is doing is just trying to distract attention from the problems that he's facing so that we discuss something else. Like what we are doing right now. We are discussing about trains and about how he's dancing so that I can actually say it's not a good dancer. Let's start from there.
Oh my.
And then I can also say that for a young person, what is he doing with that kind of a pot? Go to the gym instead of dancing. First, I think he just needs to go to the gym.
Okay.
As an older sister,
yes,
I'll advise you, go to the gym. You have no business having that big pot as a young person.
Let me ask you this. The barbs between yourself and the governor have seemed quite personal, including the one during the burial of the late Kibra member of parliament, and you took exception to the remarks that he made regarding his family, etc. Why does your concern with him degenerate to personal remarks and not just
Well, I don't degenerate to personal remarks. Actually, he is the one who started on the personal remarks. Because actually, there's nothing stopping me from raising issues of concern when I think another leader is not doing a right thing. Like right now, you've asked me, and I can comment. And I can say, well, go to the gym. You are a leader like me. Even if I'm not going to the gym, somebody else can tell me go to the gym. That's not personal. That's really a kind remark if you ask me. But that's on a lighter note. But I can comment that you took us on the wrong path with you know, Ken Okoth's issue. That may not have been the right place to raise it. It created temperatures elsewhere that led to Ken Okoth being buried, not being buried, but being cremated instead of being buried back at home.
Right.
So he actually spiraled a series of activities behind the scene. That's what I was not happy about. But then he goes around and tells me in response that Millie Odhiambo pia anyamaze anakulwa. How does coolering come from me talking about just a comment I didn't like you saying?
Right, and without going into it, you had subsequent comments to make about him, and on this program, he took issue with that, and he felt that you were being very personal. So you do not have a personal issue with him.
He raised, and I actually listened and I saw. And he was telling you, Millie started. I did not start. If you actually look at the thread, and I'm usually very clear about this as a woman leader, I do not start that sort of war. But if you start it with me, you will get a response. Because men think that they have monopoly of abuse of a sexual nature against women. So what I responded, and I told him that we will deal intellectually. I'm not going, don't get worried. But I said we are going to deal intellectually.
Right.
But if you want us to get in the mud, me, Millie Odhiambo Mabona, Member of Parliament Suba North,
you're willing to go
I
there?
will go to the mud with you. I will come out and I will shower and I will shine.
Do you think there is an unfair expectation on women legislators to sort of be above board in such issues, not to go where men go with such?
Well, then generally, generally the public expects us, you know, not to go that way. But fortunately or unfortunately, I don't conform. I don't care think whatever you want to think about me. I don't care. But nobody is going to push me into the mud and expect me to play by a higher standard. I'm not Michelle Obama, who says when they go low, we go higher. You go low, I will go lower.
And Millie, what does that then say of you as a leader? As somebody whom, for instance, we expect to uphold Chapter 6 of the Constitution, or to be even just somebody that young people look up to, espouse to become? What do you think?
What I will tell you is, if you are looking up to me as a woman, is that politics is rough. And do not come expecting that people will treat you with kid gloves. And it also means that I'm telling men, let us get over with the dealing with below the belt issues with women. And then after that, we can now deal with issues that are of concern. And some of us are willing to be the sacrificial lambs, to be called names in order that other women can have it easier in future.
And we'll talk
so
about,
I don't mind.
Okay,
I don't mind being a sacrificial lamb,
right,
so that other women are treated right.
You think it's justifiable? Somebody has to...
For me, yes.
Okay. And we'll talk about electoral reform and issues like that a little later, because women, of course, when they get into the race, they face a very, different type of politic, if you like, which gets sometimes physical, sexual assault in nature. And you have suffered the same in Parliament at the hands of male legislators. Just... very briefly, what is the substantial way to hold politicians accountable for how they treat women in public spaces, whether, conducting business in Parliament in an official capacity, like, your issue with Moses Kuria during, was that the previous Parliament, I believe?
Yes.
Or even out on the campaign trail, where it can be quite vicious, and, very sexually oriented in nature.
I can tell you that our laws are very clear about such issues. The challenge is that nobody implements the law. When I report, for instance, that I've been beaten and nobody takes action. When I report that I was undressed in Parliament by male MPs and nobody takes action. So you cannot then tell me that we need to bring law. The law is there. So what we need to do is to implement. And if you see me taking on other male MPs or male leaders that are attacking us, it's because the law is not working. And if the law is not working, I will help the law work. I will not sit down and get you abusing me or abusing other women. Like recently, I saw another male member of Parliament attacking Honorable Shebesh, calling her Malaya. If I disagree with you in terms of politics, it can't be always about me being a Malaya. Because if you are to talk about Malayas, everybody was born. And for us to have been born, somebody was a Malaya.
Why do you think
mothers.
Action is not being taken by respective authorities, by the police or any other body?
I think still the same gender biases. And so it's going to be a long path. But we are not going to tire. And that's why I'm telling you that we have to insist that when people go lower, there are times we will go lower. Okay.
Let's return to the Nairobi issues. And, you've previously called on the governor to take professional advice from others in order to run the county properly. Do you believe he's currently running the county as the Constitution envisages, or do you believe that we are in a situation that would require the executive or the presidency to step in?
Well, I don't think we've reached the level where you call the executive to come in. But I think it needs to change. There are a lot of things that are not working. He's been without a deputy governor for the longest time. He's always firing all his CECs. He makes roadside decisions. He's too erratic the way he works as a leader. And I think, again, because he came in with a lot of goodwill as a young leader who had singled himself out as a people's person who can do a lot of work for poor people, but he's losing that path that he came on, and he was supported across the board, and sometimes you lose that goodwill. when you lose your path, because none of us is God. And sometimes I think he plays God.
He plays God.
Yes.
As sources have intimated, and you may have seen tonight, that State House is pushing for Philip Kisia perhaps to be nominated as, rather to be appointed as Deputy Governor. What do you think of him? Is he sort of the kind of name that would get bipartisan support?
Well, Philip Kisia has a record, has a good record, so I really don't see a problem, even if he were to be pushed. But ultimately, it's for Governor Sonko, it's not about whether you push a good person, because even his deputy, Igathe came in with a very good record, but he still left. Some of his CECs have come with an extremely good record, but have still left. So sometimes when you see that happening a lot around you, you need to question yourself. And none of us was born with all the right answers. I have said it to him before. He fears taking advice from other leaders and other professionals. And when you take advice, it can only help you improve. And when people ask or seek to help you, it's not always about abusing people and telling them how stupid or whatever they are. And so that it reach a level that nobody wants to tell Sonko off, because then he'll be throwing all kind of abuses at you. I personally don't fear. I will tell him. Like I can tell you, I was very...
But did Nairobians make a mistake? I beg your pardon. Did they make a mistake?
Did Nairobians make a mistake? From the way that he's been behaving, I would say so. Okay. Unless he changes.
And we've also seen the dramatic return this week of the embattled and ousted Beatrice Elachi back to her speaker position. What are your thoughts on that? And do you read a wider plot, as some are alleging now, one that is meant to sort of insulate the governor from perhaps possible prosecution, or to leave the county in flux in the absence of a deputy governor?
Well, I think what the governor is doing, just rightfully as you say, is basically trying to get people to cushion him. And, you know, because at the very first he was actually accused of pushing Elachi out. But he is good at playing his politics. So now that he's seen that he's having a bit of a difficulty, then he says, well, let me help Elachi back. And so then, you know, enters Elachi. But still, I think that alone will not help him. He needs to rearrange and reorganize the way he does his politics. Because even if Elachi comes back and all that, but is he delivering? That's the most important thing. Yeah. All right.
Let's move to matters of Kibra. And of course, it's a place where you have campaigned many times together with the ODM party, and so you're very familiar with the dynamics of Kibra. Do you believe the Kibra by-election is going to be a litmus test for the handshake?
I don't think so. I don't think it would be a litmus test for the handshake as such. But I think, for me, it's an issue of ensuring that the IBC does its work right. It's more of a litmus test for the IBC than for the handshake. The handshake, just like every other political situation, can, you know, wither storms and can wither challenges and contests. But if you are talking about the persons or the institution that the focus is on the IBC.
And what are your concerns around the IBC?
Our concerns around the IBC is, for instance, the delay, you know, with the releasing register, the accusations that are being there about tampering with the register. And elections must not only be fair, but must be seen to be fair. So if one side feels like there's an attempt to interfere with it, then that doesn't really augur well for the IBC. So for me, the litmus test is on IBC to be above board.
And you know, why is there this fear from ODM that there could be electoral malpractice? I mean, is there I know you've talked about delays, but is there really a concrete reason why you should believe that IBC would want to, you know, do some...
Well, we have intelligence. We have intelligence that it is doing hanky-panky. Not only that it wants to, that it is doing.
Based on what?
On intelligence
What is that intelligence, I mean?
Well, I can't tell you what the intelligence report is, because then it ceases to be intelligence report. They will not give us next time.
But you're certainly acting on it. Yes, are you saying from within the commission? You have sources within the commission who are telling you?
We have sources that are telling us. And it is based on those sources that we told IBC that we are aware that about 10,000 votes were being transferred from Dagoretti to Kibra, not Dagoretti, Langata to Kibra, and about 2,000 from Dagoretti to Kibra. Yeah.
And you're alleging that this has been done in favor of the Jubilee candidate?
Our intelligence tells us that.
Okay.
Yes.
Some say that you're just crying wolf and that your real concern is that ODM could suffer the kind of upset that it saw in Embakasi and Ugenya.
Well, Embakasi, I wouldn't even call it like we'd suffer an upset, because really, who was the MP for Embakasi? It was not an ODM MP. It was a Wiper MP. And for Ugenya, fortunately, being a politician, I know the intrigues of Ugenya. And most of the intrigues in Ugenya were actually intra-party that caused us Ugenya, not things that have to do with, you know, the external. It's our intra-party politics that cost us Ugenya, because I can't explain, but they were primarily intra-party politics. Okay.
We've also seen Jubilee today allege that ODM has sponsored violence in Kibra with the stoning of Mariga's vehicle and, you know, other, you know, tactics that they have termed to be violence and intimidation. They're even calling for Imran Okoth to be disqualified. What's your response?
My response is Imran Okoth has not sponsored any violence. Imran Okoth is a fairly, very humble person who has worked over the years with the Kibra people, and also that ODM says that actually that violence has been sponsored by the Mariga team to discredit our candidate. So it's not us. And most of it was actually sponsored from outside, as they themselves were saying. So it's not us. It's not ODM.
Before we're just going to take a break, I think, right now. It seems I can't sneak a question in. But when we return, we're going to talk about Honorable Millie Odhiambo's thoughts on the constitution, proposed constitution review, gender issues, electoral reform, and much more. Stay with us.